Okay, so what we're going to do in this particular demonstration now is that we're going to load what we call an artifact file. And we're going to tell it that we want the system to load this artifact file and use it as a framework to understand how the network is configured and how to interact with the system. So we're going to upload that file now and use that as the baseline. So it's now going to give us a whole kind of overview of exactly what the network looks like and give you an incident and kind of some background information of what the network looks like and how it operates. So this is now basically giving a more advanced prompt to our LLM so that it really understands kind of the history of what the network normally looks like, what are normal operating procedures, what are normal range of movements and performance metrics are for the network. So here now you can see a summary of what has been learned by that artifact file. So it now understands all my VLANs, it understands all the devices, the normal mode of operation. So it's kind of gone through that initial baselining based on that artifact file. So we actually are not overly interested in the report at the moment. The key thing is we've now taught this session, this chat, exactly everything that it needs to know. So what I can now do is I can now start to query it. So I can now say to the system, okay, let's now find out what my application performance looks like for my network. So tell me what's going on within the network, for the past 24 hours. Have there been any problems or any issues that you can see from the database? And again, so it's now gathered all the data, it's analyzed that data, and it's now going to generate us a report based on the last 24 hours for application performance specifically. And again now, so we've now got our report. We can see we've got an overview of exactly what's going on. We can see that our network health is looking very good. So overall, we have an excellent, the load balancer is good, our endpoint servers are good. And again, the data has been broken down, a network map has been generated so that we can clearly now see all the VLANs, we can see the average client times, all the data, all the session statistics. We can also get an overview of the hour by hour breakdown, and we can see that during certain times of the day we're getting slightly higher than average latency. We can also break it down by connection. So this is based on our overall network statistic. So this is between the load balancer and the client, and then we can also then break that down by the endpoint to load balancer breakdown as well. So again, we can get total breakdown, and we get findings and recommendations, and an overall performance summary. So we can see between our load balancer and our clients, everything is looking good. And between our endpoint server and our load balancer, everything's looking very good. So again, we get this complete comprehensive breakdown of the network, and we can identify if anything is wrong or looking bad. But what I can do though is I can actually now interact with that data again. So we've got our report, we've got our baseline, we know exactly what's going on on our network. But what I can also do now is to run a spot check. So I can now say, for example, a customer or a client has phoned up and said, I've got poor performance on my network, I'm unable to connect to the to my server. Okay, so what I can now do is I can say, are there any problems with the application server client connections? Okay, I can actually ask it what's going on now. So I'll ask it to look specifically at the client application performance metrics and look at the data for live data now. And in the background, what I've done is I've modified the network so that I've basically broken it. So what it should now do is detect whether or not there's a problem on the network and be able to visualize that. And you can see immediately it's come back and said, yes, I've detected that there is a critical problem, and it's saying that there is a problem with the load balancer and there is a severe latency issue that's been introduced. So by Interacting with more up-to-date data, it's been able to detect that there's a problem, okay, and it's recognized that the average round trip time has increased exponentially. So you can see that it's somewhere in the order of about 50 milliseconds now versus its, tens of milliseconds before. So you can see it's quite substantially worse. And this is an excellent way of being able to clearly talk to and identify exactly what's going on within the network. And again, I could ask the system now to go ahead and to generate a report for that, or I could ask it to give me some recommendations. And in fact, you can see here that it has given me some recommendations. So it said to check the TCP delay on the load balancer, and what I can do is I can go in and I can make some modifications to the TCP delay. I can reset it, and it should say that once I've made that modification, then you should be able to have that result. And you can see by having that historical data, it's been able to identify that this problem has happened before and that we should look at it. So again, we can see very clearly that the access to the raw data is able to be detected and run. So if we wanted to now, we could also now run a report for that, and we could then log that and save that into data. So run a report based. So we can ask it to run a report based on this finding. Now in the background, I've actually also now fixed the problem. So you should now see that it should also identify that the incident timeline has been updated, and it'll now run as a report based on that. And here's our report. So again, as you can see, we've identified that there was an incident. We have all the information about it, and we can also see, in this particular case, you can see the status is resolved because I've fixed the issue. But you can see that the report I've asked for is to outline that problem. So we have all the information. We have the date, the time and stamp when it was normally operating. It started to happen. Recovery begins, and now we have full recovery of the incident. So the current situation is stable. And we get a whole lot of performance metrics. We get a full timeline analysis of exactly what's going on. And this is all coming from that packet data. So having real analytical time-stamped packet data allows us to dig in and understand exactly what's going on, when it happened, and then root cause analysis the problem. So it can clearly identify exactly where, when, and what happened. And now we can identify why the problem happened as well. So we can clearly estimate and get a breakdown of revenue lost, MTTR, etc. is all available using this this report process. So again, it's very, very simple once you program the LLM with the network information, the architecture, for it to now analyze that data through the MCPs and get real-time analytics of what's going on within the network.